All right, everyone. We have reached the end of college. We have reached the end of the 2024 college football season. Welcome to our college football playoff bowl season breakdown, 1 hour special. We're going to do a partial review of the season. We are going to do our top 5 WA schools of 2024. Just because there are at least 5 victims I got to pick on before we go into bowl season. Sorry, folks. So, Merry Christmas, Mela Kaliki Maka, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays, Happy whatever the mother F you celebrate. Let's get into this. Okay. We're going to start off with the Ohio State-Michigan game, only because I was going to try to avoid this, but with the amount of stuff you presented me with in our WhatsApp group chat, I'm sorry. This deserves its entire own segment just because of the obscenely stupid of this game. This is its own category. Let's start out with one big thing. Okay. Ryan Crybaby Wade, you are now 0-4 against Michigan. You are 0-2 against head coach Sharon Moore. You got spanked by the black man 2 years in a row, not 1 year in a row, 2 years in a row. In year 2, after getting spanked year 1, you decide to go and spend, how much was it on the transfer portal?
$20 million.
So you go to spend $20 million on the transfer portal. Count it, $20 million of NIL money just to bring in a new quarterback, basically a bunch of new transfer players, but you don't even properly train or have your team practice for this big game, knowing even if you are going to make the playoffs, Michigan for the last how many years of the game of this series always comes ready to play this game.
Michigan's always ready.
So what is Ohio State's excuse?
They have none.
Is it basically, wow, we're the best?
Honestly, at this point, because I don't want to offend people, yet at the same time, this needs to be said.
You're going to offend them, and you're going to offend all the ears who are going to end up listening to this anyway, so you might as well just say it. Let's say it. Ohio State, you suck. Before we talk about the head coach,
okay.
You guys,
I was going to say something different.
Huh?
I was going to say something different.
Okay, what were you going to say?
It's the sheer lopsidedness of passion, of misdirected passion, I should say.
So apparently the college football playoff takes priority.
It should. But instead, it's not even that. It's Ohio State just wants to win against Michigan so bad. But Michigan doesn't actually really care that much. To them, the game is just a game against something that happened in a historical context, for lack of a better term. And Michigan's just like, okay, sure, we'll have a game, no worries. Sure, you hate us, but that's fine. We don't care. We know we're still better. And Ohio State is just like, oh my gosh, we gotta beat these guys, even if it costs us everything. And I think this insane amount of devotion and insane amount of pride gets in the way of the fact that, hey, this is just a game. And I think for Ryan Day, I think this is psychological because Michigan for the last 4 years have essentially broke Ryan Day to the core. And now with a entire class of Buckeyes who played at Ohio State, as sad as it sounds, never beat Michigan. And
So if I'm going to look back on, if I'm going to look back on the coaches that have gone through Ohio State since we were kids, basically we are old enough to remember how well the team played under Jim Tressel in the
yes, Tressel. Yep,
Tressel got
he
these
was
guys
good.
motivated and ready to play against Michigan every
That's
single game.
right.
He treated every game including Michigan, like Michigan is the most important game of your defining season. This was our generation of football players.
Yeah.
This is honestly, I think Tressel must be like late 60s, somewhere in his 70s now. Urban Meyer is on television for as much as the media and people like us crap on Urban Meyer. He did get his players motivated. I don't know if this is because of Meyer and Tressel's two combined ages, and Ryan Day is only in his mid-40s, so this is probably his first full head coaching job, and he's still learning the ropes to a degree, but still.
Sure.
In the Big Ten, and I quote, the Big Ten is one of the most competitive Midwestern conferences. You're from Ohio, you know this yourself. These boys grow up with a football in their hands. They live and breathe football. They're hoping to play for traditionally any of these Big Ten schools in the Midwest. That's their dream for entering the NFL. We're going to touch on University of Southern California and UCLA at some point in all of this,
Yes, we will.
We're going to touch on the Heisman, but this needs to be said. If Ryan Day can't get the team motivated 4 years in a row, and he was mentored under two coaches with much more coaching experience and a little bit of seasoned age, then something tells me Ohio State's going to have to figure out, is Ryan Day the correct leader for Ohio State? Because 4 years in a row of losing to Michigan, 2 years getting spent by the Black man.
And I'm going to say this very clearly. Ryan Day is trying to make Ohio State football something that it's not.
Which is what?
And Ohio State is simply not a team that is just going to pound the ball all the time. It's just not. Michigan's that way.
They're used to Urban Meyer kind of not. They're used to an Urban Meyer system, clearly still. Most of those players are probably recruited for that.
Yes, exactly. And to elaborate, this is part of psychology, How did Michigan beat Ohio State this year? Well,
ground and pound.
Yes, ground and pound, but how did it become like that? Michigan said to Ohio State effectively, you want to play with us? Play with us. And guess what? Ohio State took the bait. Ryan Day took the bait. And they tried to do ground and pound and lost.
So then
Ohio State lost because they did not play their own game. They played Michigan's game. They played on Michigan's terms and not Ohio State's terms. That is the true reason why they lost the season as opposed to any other season.
And so then if you want to be a ground and pound team, then you have to go into the off season and start recruiting those type of players if you want to run ground and pound football, because you're not going to do it with you're not going to do it with the last potentially large class of Urban Meyer's system.
No, you're not.
And they were not recruited for this. They were recruited for an Urban Meyer spread offense, meaning the linemen would have needed to bulk up if you want to play a classic ground and pound offense. You know this.
That's right.
The targeted athlete has to change. And yes, it's good to see college going back to more ground and pound oriented football, because that's probably a trend that's starting up again in the NFL. But
Mm-hmm.
then you have to be having your linemen can't be, below 300 pounds and agile. They have to be big, bulky boys again.
Yes, that's right. And
So
let's be honest, and I'm gonna be very honest. The last 2 minutes of what was it, the second quarter, I believe?
I
Was it
think
either
so.
first? That last 2 minutes was probably the best that Ohio State played the entire effing game.
They
And
did.
if they actually just did that the entire game, they would have won.
Or they would have at least made the game closer than it was.
No, it wouldn't be because it's already closer already. It was already knotted effectively. But it would have made Michigan think twice about the way they defended Ohio against Ohio State.
Yeah. So with that said, I have one large comment in the two differences between the two coaches. Ryan
Mm-hmm.
Day, you are not suited to be a head coach. I don't care what anybody
Ouch.
says at this point. You are more of a coordinator. You're not a motivator. You're
Ouch.
a huge sore loser. I'm sorry. Going wah for 2 years in a row because you lost to your rival who was 7-5 this year.
Oh, and what's worse
And then and
is
then pushing your players to start a brawl on the field. Really?
I mean, what was Ryan Day doing other than staring off into space and going, "Wow, what happened?" Well, you just got what was his name,
You got
Sawyer. Jack
hosed.
Sawyer got so upset that he started a brawl with other Ohio State players over flag planting. Let's get real. And then on top of that, you got the legislator of the great state of Ohio, some
Actually, speaking
idiot,
of the flag plant,
some idiot decided
that
they
makes
should
them
make it a felony to plant a flag. What is this? That
passing
makes
a
y'all
law
make you
because
look so
it's okay.
soft.
Pass
That's
it
the softest
having
thing ever.
having your state legislator in Ohio pass a law over
It
sportsmanship
hasn't been
because
passed
you
yet.
want to rub it in the other team's face with flag planting and then go wow when they do it to you basically makes you the biggest crybaby of the entire football
Absolutely.
season. Like you are seriously
Soft.
joke.
Super
Nobody.
soft. And there's
What
no
was your
respect out of
nickname?
it. There's no
The
respect there.
Ohio Soft State University.
I mean that's your reputation now because you got a coach that is like not really doing that well. It's unfortunate, who's but he's broken psychologically. His players have been broken psychologically. Now you got the great state of Ohio, you got some people in legislature who are so hurt by it. I mean, all this culminates to just plain old wah, I'm soft. And
I've
I
noticed
don't
that
know.
we used to
I don't know.
when
Like
we
like
grew
what
up,
is it?
when we grew up, at the top of our millennial generation, when you had coaches who were probably around our parents' age or older, there seemed to be a lot more firm discipline.
Oh
That,
yeah.
huh?
That's gone. Discipline. Oh yeah, that shit's gone now.
So now most of the boomers in this situation, even Nick Saban, the very last of them, start retiring, because it's, clearly, they've reached
It's a
the.
different game now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a much different game now. So you do need to be somewhat friendlier with the players, but I would say the next generation down, which is Generation X, a lot of these head coaches, eh,
They need to just be like, all right, this is what I need you to do. These are my expectations. You can't meet them, leave.
I mean, I feel like starting with our age group, you're already starting to see some reasonably good successes. Not
Yeah.
Mike Norville.
Oh well, that's
Norville,
another one. Yeah, that's
Norville's
another one.
another one, but Sharon Moore. I mean, yes, he didn't. He
Yeah.
had He ended up 7-5. He ended up 8-5 this year with 5 losses. But to be fair to him,
Mm.
half the players from last year's 15-0 squad left. They're going to have to deal with sanctions because
Oh yeah.
Jimmy
You mean
Harbaugh
seven
joined
and
the
five?
NFL and
Yeah.
decided to go bye-bye after
Yeah.
cheating.
Yeah. That's all. That's too bad, too sad. But let's think about it.
I would say more, in my opinion, not just in my opinion, but here's the big consensus.
Mm.
Even if he went 7-5 this year, I would say beating Ohio State 2 years in a row at the
Oh,
very
that's
minimum
huge.
earns him another year, and he has leverage with that.
Huge. Absolutely huge. On the road too.
Oh yeah, in the horseshoe.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. I mean, not only as a standing, but in its own right. Oh man,
Right.
that's just so huge.
So,
And I
so
mean, I know that's hurting Ohio State football completely.
bingo. All right. So now that we've unbuckled that topic, we're gonna shift gears a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna now divulge. We're gonna start with a little fun topic. There are a lot of head coaches, like for example, we've seen a couple of head coaches who are now stepping down from those positions to become coordinators. What do you think of that, and why do you think some of them are doing it? Is it because they want less responsibility?
Honestly, I haven't given much thought, but I mean, at this point, I mean, some of these head coaches are like, you know what? Why not give either A, someone else a chance, or B, you know what? I don't want to do this shit anymore. And or C, they feel like, they're better utilized downstream.
Now, how much of a mess would you say Florida State and Ohio State are, just in terms of not just the season but going forward? Florida State finished, I think it was what, 2-13?
No, that they were like 2-13. It's either 2-10 or two and 11 or
They
something
had
like
a
that.
they
I
had an
don't know.
abysmal season, no matter how you look
It,
at it.
it was
But
like two. It's like 2-10 or something, or 2-11.
they
One
had
of
an
the.
abysmal, they had an abysmal year, which started off.
Oh man, that was like a Uno reverse year for them, man. I mean,
I
but
don't think that was an
I
Uno reverse. I think that was given to the fact the quarterback got injured. All the players were seniors, basically graduated from
yeah,
that team. Like,
graduate, yeah, okay, that's fair. I mean, but let's look at Michigan. How come Michigan fared better given similar circumstances?
probably because Sharon Moore is a better motivator for a head coach.
Okay, all right, but they got
I
new
feel that
players
could
as
be
well.
one factor. I feel like Norval's good up to a point, but I feel like this year, because it was a rebuilding year, he probably didn't know how to reach the new players coming up. Then he also had a transfer.
Oh, that, yep, yeah, he did. He did a lot of transfer portal, and yeah, that did not turn out too well for them either.
Funny because you think of the transfer portal this year, and this has been a theme in the last, what was it, 5, 6 years. The transfer portal becomes that little hidden thing in college football, similar to NFL free agency. You don't like the
Hmm.
current college you go to, or you don't start, you put your name in the portal, and then you can go somewhere else. Like,
That's
of
right.
all people, which is somewhat interesting, Arch Manning wants to transfer now. Although I guess I don't blame him, since Sarkisian sort of messed that whole quarterback situation up at Texas.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, it's some people, some of these athletes, they just go in, and if they don't get the playing time, if they're not getting what they want, or maybe even if they did get what they want and they just want a different experience, they can just be like, you know what? Maybe I want to go, maybe I want to play up, or maybe I want to play down, maybe I want to play sideways, maybe I want to see what the other side is looking like. And I think that dynamic, I think that transfer thing adds a new dynamic that means coaches think twice and thrice about how they're going to fill their rosters now. And I think Mike Norvell kind of got the shittier end of that, especially
Well,
when
look
it
at
comes
also
to
how many
Nil too. Don't
scholarship
forget Nil.
players. Look at how many scholarship players he also lost to graduation.
Well, yes. Well, that's all part of it too. You know, it's like how do you handle graduation versus filling them with the portal? What do you do? Do you go down to the freshmen, the sophomores, and you recruit them from high school, or can you do just the portal and someone who's already there?
You can't
And it's
build a,
like,
if you want to be a very good college football team, you
mm,
should not just focus on the transfer portal because
no, you
those,
can't do one. You can't do one or the other. It's got to be a mix of both. Now,
that's
what is that
exactly what you
mix?
do in the NFL. It's the same as with
That
draft.
what?
You don't
Yeah,
just
and
rely on
yeah.
free agency to build
No,
your
you
team.
can't. You can't rely on
That
free
not work.
agency. That doesn't work. But is it? What's the mix? I mean, that's going to depend on the team and how things are looking like. And because I mean, every college and university has different rules for athletes and graduation and whatever. So this is an added dimension. And don't forget no money. That's another thing too, is that no money also is kind of a a fourth dimension or nth dimension because now it's like, okay, money's involved.
Well, of course, because Travis, before we discuss the Heisman very briefly, that's how Jacksonville State was and Dion were able to pull off Travis Hunter before they all left for Colorado together. Was
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
the nil basically allowed for a very traditional, historic black college to be able to pull off the biggest Division I robbery ever, which was basically everyone
hmm
was like, "Wait, what the fuck, Travis? Why are you going to Jacksonville State when you could go to 5 Division I school?" Very simple,
Exactly. I
very
think
simple,
Travis.
because
I think Travis
Jacksonville
did
State at
smart.
that time had Dion. Dion
Yeah,
can sell to an athlete. What I will do for you is the following: I will develop you as a man. I will get you ready for whatever your next challenges in life are, and I will coach you up that way. I will develop
yeah,
you as a man. So for Travis Hunter
yeah.
to be a two-way player, and props to him for winning the Heisman, because
Yes, he
every
worked his ass
generation
off.
has one talent. The last time you had a two-way player who even went to the NFL was Chuck Bednarik, one of the awards that Travis Hunter won. But to be honest, I'm not going to criticize Travis Hunter because this kid's fucking amazing to watch, even just highlight
Oh
reels
yeah,
of. He is that good. He is a generational talent. If he's going
yeah.
to go to the NFL is not going to let him play two ways. He's going to have to
Well,
choose
that's
one.
true. That's
They're going to
true.
throw millions of dollars at him in the NFL, and they're going to say, you have to play one or the other. So
Yeah,
choose.
yeah, and that's okay. That's okay because he got his two in college and he made a little money. He played with the big boys. He had his opportunity. He won the Heisman. He's good, Travis. He's fine.
Oh, they'll definitely cash in with the NFL. That's for sure.
hmm
They'll
I
cash in with the NFL when it's the right time.
Uh-huh. Yep. And I think that's the reason why Travis Hunter and Deion Sanders worked. And that's the right way to use no money, in my opinion.
Whereas
Just
his son Shador is a different story.
Shador is a totally different story, and that's another topic for another day.
Oh yeah, big time. So now we're going to touch on for these next two small segments. We're going to basically go through our bowl predictions and college football
Mm.
playoff predictions. So next week Friday, you take your pick. Number 10 Indiana versus number 7 Notre Dame. Who do you think is going to win this game?
Oh, that's a hard one. That's a
The homer
hard
in me
one.
says Notre Dame, but Indiana was that good this year, so I think
I
that's going to be a tough one.
it's yeah, that's gonna be a toss. That's an in-state toss-up. Um, if I had to pick one, like
The problem is neither school played really good opponents because
they
Notre Dame beat up
didn't,
on the
they
service
didn't, but
academies.
I will give it to Indiana, and the only reason is because Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois, and I know
Yeah,
that
I love
freaks
Notre
me
Dame.
out.
I love their
That
head coach.
freaks me out
I
a bit.
respect their head coach. I like the guy. He's a good recruiter, but against the superior Big Ten team who basically ran the table in the Big Ten, I can't see Notre Dame winning that game.
Yeah, I mean, but I think they can keep it close though.
They'll keep it close.
They can keep it
SMU
close.
Penn State.
Oh, which one?
SMU Penn State, December 21st.
SMU. SMU, man.
SMU, I'm going to agree with you on that one just because of the type of year SMU had, and they deserved to be in the playoff too. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what any Alabama fan says. Go wall yourself in the corner. Nobody wants to see your boring team in there for a year, Alabama.
Yeah. I'm
Clemson,
trying.
Texas, number 12 versus number 5 at their
Oh,
Stadium.
Clemson, Texas. Texas, see, you know what? I mean, Texas isn't really all that impressive for some odd reason.
But for the first year in the SEC, I was wrong with
I,
my early season prediction where I said they would have.
but they did do well in the championship game. I do like I
They
do like
played a
that.
very good. They played a top Georgia team. I
They
will give
did.
credit to
I
I will
will.
give credit to Steve Sarkisian and the job he did having them run the table in the SEC. I will eat crow for this year, but I have a
Mm,
feeling next year they're going to probably end up with a loss or two, just because the SEC will have at least figured them out now.
hmm
Or they just
Yeah,
go schedule a bunch of cupcakes yet again because this is what
you
Alabama.
know. Yeah.
Alabama's a bunch of wins.
But Texas versus Clemson. I mean,
I say
I would
Clemson.
say I would go. I mean, I like how I mean Texas kind of seems like the better team, but Clemson's hot. Clemson's a little hot, but then again, South Carolina just did beat Clemson, which kind of is interesting. Um,
How about
but
number
I'm gonna, but
nine,
I'm gonna go with
Tennessee?
my home state. I'm gonna go Clemson.
Oh yeah, that's right. You live in the Carolinas now. Now we're gonna go to the fun one. Ohio Soft State University versus
Tennessee,
Tennessee.
Tennessee.
I'm sorry, Ohio Soft State University. I think
It's
you.
good Tennessee
I'm picking you guys
because
to lose to a superior SEC team, and you're going to fire the head coach because let's be honest, the guy's on
uh,
after
I
Michigan.
I'm not even gonna go there. Why Tennessee? Well, Tennessee is actually a no nonsense team. They did pretty well this year. Ohio State did very well this year too. It's just I think unless Ohio State can turn their psychological issue around and Ryan Day actually comes up with a game plan and forces Tennessee to play Ohio State's game, I think Tennessee is just going to have a field day.
I mean, there are a lot of smaller. Before we do our top five, this is going to be a fun topic to discuss.
Mm.
USC and UCLA transitioning from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten. On first things
Yeah.
first, before we talk about the whole WA issue.
Mm.
when I look at like you, we talked about the dissolving of the Pac-12
Yeah.
because everyone wanted to actually play superior, because everyone was looking at one to two factors with all of this for the super conference issue now of the playoffs.
Money
One
and
being
superior teams. Yeah.
they are trying to consolidate the conferences into large conferences, like 16-team conference, 16 to 20 team super conferences. I get it.
Ridiculous.
But out of the whole Pac-12, the funny thing is this: Colorado did horrible in the Pac-12 last year, but goes back into the Big 12 and somehow is now qualified for a bowl.
Yeah.
Now, Oregon, who beat up on everybody in the Pac-12, actually earned the right to say, "Wow, we want to go to the Big 10 because we can play with the big boys."
And they definitely can.
The fact that they ran the Big 10 this year in their first year, they went literally 12-0. I will sit here and say to you, Oregon, you have my respect with Dan Lanning as your coach. You guys came to play. You guys took it seriously. USC and UCLA, your wah, unfortunately, wasn't earned. This was, we want more money, but we're not actually ready to play against these schools whose players literally are based in the Midwest.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Y'all aren't that great.
Especially given the fact that your head coach, who was head coach at Oklahoma, actually is more of a coordinator. And I read a very oddly interesting article about him. He can develop quarterbacks, but what screwed him up at USC was bringing his best friend, bringing his DC from Oklahoma, who wasn't that great in the first place, letting him be a first-time coordinator, not actually recruiting defensive talent, defenders, defensive talent, defensive line, DBs, linebackers to play that scheme. That guy got fired last year, so they gave him one more chance for this year, and they shit the bed in the Big
10. Mm-hmm.
I mean, you just can't. The other concerning thing and the other interesting thing is a lot of the two new generations head coaches, most of these guys were working at big programs when they got promoted, and they didn't traditionally start out at smaller schools like Pete Carroll and Nick Saban.
Mm-hmm.
Pete Carroll and Nick Saban started at much smaller conferences, smaller schools back in the day, built up a reputation. In fact, Saban, if I remember correctly, when we were growing up, was at a much smaller school.
Yeah, he's a Mac guy.
Yeah, and that's how he got hired at Michigan State.
Mm-hmm.
Because somebody trusted him when he built up a reputation at a small school to now at a bigger school say, hey, come play for me. Same with Pete Carroll. I think
start small and grow.
I think Gen X and millennials all got handed their jobs a little too soon. Some of them can. Sharon Moore, is still sort of learning, but I would say he's got a lot of potential. Remind me the name of the coach at USC. What was his name again?
I don't remember. I
forgot his name, but he needs to either go back to being a coordinator or go to a small school and start over.
That's
because you are not ready for the big time. You were not ready when you went to USC. USC is a really huge school and a really huge job.
Sure is. It's kind of like Ryan Day in Ohio State. Huge job, huge school, huge job. But was Ryan Day really ready? I don't think so.
I don't think Ryan Day was ready either to be able to take on a huge job like Ohio State.
Right. But I will give Ryan Day credit, though. He did well.
That's also because Urban Meyer is a knucklehead, but that's another story.
But besides, I mean, outside of the whole Michigan fiasco, Ryan Day did pretty good at Ohio State.
Of course. But unfortunately, if you lose to your rival,
oh yes, there's that. Yeah,
that's unfortunately not going to help you, even if you had a better record. The
Exactly. So that
especially
proves
with where
my
you
point
come
about
from,
Ohio
and you
State.
know this. Those Midwestern rivalry games could make or break your career in coaching.
Yep, they are that important.
All right, so I think for our last segment, we're now going to do our top fives. This segment, which will be the final segment of this, and then before then, I'm going to stop record, and then I just want to mention one of two things to you about the New Year setup with this. We'll deal with that afterwards. First, before the top five, give me your three best games of the year that you enjoyed.
Oh, well, Michigan Ohio State was good. Georgia Tech versus Georgia was excellent. My goodness. Oh, gorgeous game. Um,
How about Florida State's first game of the week in London when they lost
oh,
huge?
oh yeah, that was a good game too. I enjoyed that game.
I was laughing my ass off,
That was
Maniac.
a great game, but I'm trying to do I'm trying to think of another game that I thoroughly enjoyed. Um, there. I mean, but those three are probably the top three games. Bama and Vanderbilt. That was actually
I
hilarious.
love that. I'm sorry, Bama and Vanderbilt is number three, only because Vanderbilt, the
That
proverbial
was gorgeous. That was.
everybody's bitch in the SEC finally got good this year.
It's like wow, yeah. But yeah, Georgia Tech and Georgia game. That that's probably arguably rivals the game. Only, yeah, I think I can say Georgia and Georgia Tech is like almost the equivalent of Ohio State and Michigan game, but in the South, in state and in the South.
I will say Michigan Ohio State was my game of the year number one.
Agreed.
Number two, watching Florida State get beat the first game of the year in London, and then number three,
Ireland,
Texas Georgia. That was just a classic.
Texas. Oh yeah, that's a good one. That's the other one I was thinking about. I was like, dude, there's one more in there. Um, yeah, I would say, for me, the Florida State and Georgia Tech, great game, but I would say that's a great honorable mention.
All right. And now, top five WA of the year for
Oh
school.
man.
You know we got to do this one.
Oh man.
There are there were so many WAs this year, but I
They
kind of
were.
had to knock this down to five. Number five, USC and UCLA. Wow, we don't want to be in the Pac-10 and we don't want to be in the Pac-12 anymore. We want to play with the big boys. Let us
And
go to
get
the Big
crushed.
Ten.
And get crushed.
Okay, sure, we'll let you in. There's only one problem. You'll be traveling a lot. So here's your record for the year. Wow, we can't play with the big boys.
Okay.
Number
Number
four,
4.
only because you and I unfortunately agree on this one. The Thundering Turd.
Oh my goodness, Marshall. The
And you
Grand Masters of WoW.
have
And
actual reason to hate that school more.
I mean, they win the championship and then they just opt out of bowl game because they lost all three QBs. Something happened. And besides, I mean, they don't know. I don't know. They just that whole makeup is just like a perpetual wow. Like we're always the victims.
Even though I will say this, They have had, especially in the 90s when we were growing up, they actually had historically very good players go through that school.
That
They
is
had
very
Raymond
true.
Hall, they had Byron Leftwich, they had Chad
That was in the
Pennington,
2000s. Yeah,
2000s.
yeah.
I mean, they had some reasonably good NFL players
They
go.
sure did.
A shame to see the fact that they
And they're
didn't
the first
flop for
ones
a
that
decade
point to
just
the
to change conference.
shoulder and to draw a flag.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the one game I will always remember. Byron Leftwich breaking his knee, and then they had to drag him to play.
Oh, I remember that. I just remember being at a game when against Marshall when I was in Toledo in the band, and I remember the time all this guy just point to his guns and they threw a flag, and I'm like, what is this? Little League?
Number 3. This one is sort of an honorable mention, but this one I think we can probably both agree on, considering the fact that for 14 years they were qualifying consistently for BCS games. Alabama.
Alabama, yes.
This was the first
Alabama.
year with a new head coach. The last
Yep.
coaches, at least upper classes.
They went 8-3. And wait, is it 9-3 yet? It'll be 9-3, I guess. And they got left out of the playoff expansion.
And wow, we
Wow.
should have been there.
We should have been there. No,
Wow.
Bama, you should not have been there.
Oh. No, you should not be. In this situation, your coach actually isn't a bad coach this year. You guys will have to adjust it,
no,
but he will
fine.
never be Nick Saban. Nick
No,
Saban is
that's
a once-in-a-generation coach that you should have been thankful to have for the amount of times that you qualified for BCS games.
Yep. And
you will always have that etched into your memory. Saban set a brand new precedent along with Bear Bryant, after Bear Bryant, generations after Bear Bryant. You will always have that. He deserved what he was able to do and get the most out of your talent. Unfortunately, now Alan DeBoer has to live with those large shoes. I feel bad for the guy because he is a good coach.
Yeah, well,
but the fans basically showed us how piss spoiled they are this year. How about How about that radio show that you had me listen to during the week where literally those fans were cringe? They were cringe.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I mean, you can make your case all you want that you should have been in, but let's be honest. When you lose to Vanderbilt,
I think the Vanderbilt crying basically not only did me in, but once you lost to your bitch,
Oklahoma State,
Oklahoma's first year in the SEC, coming from the Big 12, mind you,
and they beat you. And what was the third loss? I forget.
Georgia. The two most important losses were Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. Probably Vanderbilt and Oklahoma are the two most memorable.
Yeah, those are the two. Yeah, and that's the deal. Like you're telling me you should be in because of what? You have we'll give you a loss. Okay, fine. We'll X out that a loss. You still lost 2 games, and one of them was the Vanderbilt, and the other was the Oklahoma. Oklahoma, maybe, but come on, Vanderbilt. It's like Notre Dame losing to Northern Illinois.
Yep. Number 2. We gotta do this.
North or South?
Soft State University.
Oh, I was gonna put them at number 1.
Sorry, Florida Wash State is the number 1.
Ah, damn it.
If you want to reverse them, you can, but Florida Wash State literally did it in for me.
I don't know, man. I mean, after what has ensued, but fair enough. They kind of equal at this point.
Florida Wash State took it to a whole different level. They got the Florida State Attorney General involved in that.
That's true. That is true. And they did
At least
lawsuits.
Ohio State did actually have a fucking state senator pass a bill over
Well,
flag
introduce the bill. They introduced the bill.
introduced a bill. They're introducing a bill, which I think is stupid.
That's I don't
But
know if that's
the minute Florida
worse.
State, what did Florida State in for me last year was getting the Attorney General involved for the state. Like really,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, fair
sorry,
enough.
but they
But
lost
then
it. They lost
yeah,
it with me there.
that's true. And at least they had the record and all that. But okay, back on the range. Ohio State University football. Yes, you're number 2, just as your ranking before you lost to Michigan. Yeah, how did you lose to Michigan? It's really a mystery.
It is.
Wrapped in enigma. I mean, like really. I mean, come on, guys. And then what's worse is that brawl on the field over a flag. Then you got your senator. You know,
You guys
y'all are
literally,
soft. I'm sorry.
you guys will stay at number 2 so long as that bill doesn't pass. But if that bill passes, then
I
I'll
don't know,
stay
man.
with 1.1 with
Yeah,
Florida with the
that's just a
state.
notch. That's just super soft, man. I mean, I don't care what you believe, but if you have to legislate away something that the opponent team does by planting the flag on the field, then that just means that just tells me to me that your team's a sore loser and your coach is not doing their jobs. And by the way, who cares if they plant a flag on the field? What
No
is your
one.
job to prevent it? When you lost 4 times in a row. And I'm sorry for, was it Jack Sawyer? Yeah. I'm sorry that, and I assume you're a Gen Zer, Mr. Sawyer, but the fact that you got emotional and cried and then started a fight over it, that made you soft and your university football program soft. And this is on top of Ryan Day. Then you got the senator involved, which actually not, which to y'all's credit, didn't initiate, but still, somebody who was obviously a fan wanted to enshrine this BS, and it's just, all it's gonna do is make y'all look like a soft team, a
Oh,
soft football program. Period. Michigan doesn't have a problem with it when Texas did it. So what does that
no, of
say
course not,
about?
because
But what
Michigan
does
had
that
a big
say
up
about
with flag.
Michigan? Michigan's not only a superior team, but also they can take an L gracefully, even if it's 4 years in a row, even in bad years. 7-5, and they still are like, well, we sucked. But hey, oh well.
Oh, well. All right, guys. That's it for today's show. I had fun doing this like usual. We will be back next month to review the playoffs. All right. See you all next month.
See y'all.